Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Banter Podcast, number 80. This is number 80. That's if you don't count the Banter Goes to the Movies episodes, which at this point, should we tell people to go back and watch these? Those movies were, what are those, 2 years old at this point?
Are they 2 years? Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
It's a little dated. They're probably on FX by now.
Yeah. Amber vacuuming over there?
No, she's playing Destiny.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just your vent system in your Surface. But anyway, I'm Tim. Hey, guys. As always, I'm joined by Kevin Bradley, lovely co-host who seems to be...
I'm here. I can hear you. I'm working. I'm listening.
No worries. All right. So he's getting his headset on. Yeah, I think the Surfaces have that like singular vent system around the sides, right? I think
Yeah.
Right where the microphone is. But anyways, we're back. I'm stalling because I'm waiting for Kevin. But we've been doing a whole lot of the same thing, I think, but there's a whole lot of other stuff going on that we definitely want to talk about.
We haven't even recorded since we went and saw The Martian. I mean, I know
that's one of the first things on my list. So, yeah. I think I talked about maybe the book, but all right.
Is that the only thing that's come out since?
Pretty much, I think so. I was actually going to say one of the things that really kind of struck me that, just browsing the internet in the past couple minutes was that Goosebumps was the weekend winner. That's kind of hard to believe, but Goosebumps took the box office this weekend with $23 million. Kind of a low weekend box office max, I guess. I cannot hear you now, Kevin. There we go. Yeah. Oh. I hear you. Hello?
Oh, awesome.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, well, I can't hear you, so just keep talking.
All right.
Apparently my mic's working, but my headphones aren't, so I could read your lips. That said,
yeah,
you could hear me.
Yeah, I can. I can hear you.
We went and saw The Martian. That was 2 weeks ago, and had some awesome ramen, which was really, really great. But yeah, so you read the book for The Martian. So what's your take on that? Coming from that angle, because that's always that weird experience going into a movie where you've seen or read the book, and then you go into the movie and you have somewhat of a built-up expectation going into it. And I think the Harry Potter movies in the Hunger Games are probably the only two of those scenarios where I've actually had that happen. But it's always weird. It kind of ruins the element of surprise in a lot of ways, and it goes against that mentality that I have going into a movie where I want to. I always want to go into a movie expecting to like it. And I think if you go into a movie expecting to hate it, like we've said before, you find reasons to hate it. And I think having read the book before seeing the movie has a lot of the same implications, where you go in expecting something out of the movie. So from that standpoint, how did you think it did?
I tried to temper that a whole lot, just because I really did enjoy, and read is a strong word. I listened to the book, but I really tried to temper those kind of expectations. One of the main things that I really went in, because I like to go in, like we talk about all the time, I went in to enjoy the movie, and I figured Ridley Scott did it. I haven't watched The Counselor, so that aside, I felt like, space epics or, anything, space epic wouldn't be the right word. That's like Star Wars. But anyway, so, movie like he did with Prometheus and Aliens and all that stuff. So I expected to like the movie, and I went in. Mainly the thing that I wanted to see was just the differences between the book and the movie. And I think that we've talked about that too, whenever you're licensing materials and you're adapting materials, is that I don't know necessarily if I want the director, writer, screenplay writer, anything like that. I don't want them to go verbatim from the source material. A lot of times I like to see them make it their own, and I want to see them put their own spin on it, see what they thought maybe from Andy Weir's aspect, I don't know if, the differences in the book and the movie are something that he maybe thought, and that's always something that kind of crosses my mind with that kind of stuff, is whether or not the original writer, director, producer wanted to make those kind of changes after he was done with it and submitted it. So who's to say that, the author, I don't think the author's always going to have the Alan Moore reaction to something like Watchmen or V for Vendetta or whatever, where they just absolutely hate the reproduced material. Where I think that, I think Ridley Scott stayed really true to, I'd say 90% of the book. There's some character differences, different names, some of the stuff that happened. I don't want to spoil too much because I don't know, for the people out there, it's a pretty popular book. I don't know who read it, listened to it, whatever, who's going into it or who hasn't gone in and seen the movie yet. There are some slight differences. There's one or two major differences, but I don't think it's necessarily anything that ruins it. And I a lot of it was, I wanted to see the visual interpretation of what I was listening to. And also the book is very much a diary. Like it's he does a vlog pretty much throughout. And he does that a good bit during the movie where he is, making a record. He's making his, I guess his ship log, so that NASA, whenever they do, if and when they do find it, they could see what was going on. And a lot of the book was like that. But the thing with the book is there is a whole lot of minute detail that he goes into every day, because you're going through it with him, day one or soul one, soul two, whatever. But I think that Ridley Scott did a good job of choosing what to keep, what to take out. There are a couple things I was a little disappointed to not see visually reimagined, I guess. But overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it was one of the best movies that I saw this year. And like I said, I think it stayed pretty damn true to the book. And due to my, I guess, affinity for that book, I'm very glad about that. What about you? Did you end up liking it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. So it's really cool. I mean, again, I kind of opened up this whole discussion about coming into it after reading the book, and another side of that now I really want to listen to the audiobook and explore that avenue. But one of the other interesting things that happens with any kind of adaptation is, if you've read the book before the movie, you have a certain image in your mind of what the characters look like, what they sound like. And then the film is either on par with that, but 9 times out of 10, it's not, right? I mean, it's never going to be exactly what you envisioned it. And maybe to some extent, whenever you started listening to it, at least from your perspective, you already knew that Matt Damon was playing that character. So maybe you had that in your mind. But like for Hunger Games, for example, I had no recollection of Jennifer Lawrence being in that role. And so, but then the opposite was true for Harry Potter. Like whenever that series started out, it was the movies that led me into reading the books. And so by the end of the series, the movie series, I had already read all the books or listened to them on audio tape, and I had Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson like in my mind whenever they're going through the audio and stuff. So that's kind of an interesting thing, like how those perceptions are warped depending on which comes first or which you experience first, how it shapes the other. So
yeah. I agree 100% because it's not much of a spoiler, but because he comes in early in the book and he's also in the movie pretty early, but Chiwetel Ejiofor, I don't know exactly how you pronounce his name, but his character in that, in the movie that he plays, is named Vincent Kapoor, who is actually Venkat Kapoor in the book, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like an Indian guy. But I have no problem with him being cast in that movie, and I don't necessarily see where that the nationality difference really makes that much of a difference. But and then.
There's definitely a lot more humor than I thought it was going to be in the movie too. I mean,
that's how the book is, man. Because the thing about Mark Watney's character in it is that's his thing, I guess. Is he's pretty funny. Like he's like, all right, well, fuck it. I'm probably gonna die out here. Might as well make the best of it and just all those situations with like the disco music and watching Happy Days and the book has a lot of that stuff in it and a lot more detail, and the humor is just as much in that as it is in any part of the movie. But Yeah, some of the characters I was not expecting to be cast the way they were. Like Bruce Ang, the head of JP, or what is it, JPL? Yeah, Jet Propulsion Labs. The big Asian guy. Yeah, I was, from the book, I was imagining him as like a small kind of skinny guy. But yeah, I think he did a great job casting a lot of the people. The only thing I will say is I feel like everybody did a great job in that movie except Sean Bean. I felt like Sean Bean kind of mailed it in with all of his lines. I felt like he didn't really stand out to me, I guess. Yeah,
I could see that
because the thing about it in the book, Mitch Henderson's like a very like vocal, outspoken guy, very vehemently for or against, and he's for a lot of like he's a polarizing figure in the book, and I just didn't get that in the movie. So
no, that's a good point, and I didn't really think about it until you mentioned it, but I can definitely agree. Reflecting back on it, the other thing that I really enjoyed about it was 9 times out of 10 you watch these sort of hero movies and you expect, at least I always find myself, there's a certain point in the movie where suspense and stuff is suspended because I come to the realization of, oh wait, this is the main character, they're going to survive and everything's going to be fine. But The Martian was one of those rare instances where I legitimately, I mean, every time I turned around I had no idea of what was actually going to happen to the main character throughout the movie, where I constantly went back and forth about, well, maybe, is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? And so from that point of view, I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've talked about it a long time ago, I guess, at this point, and realize how long we've been doing this show. Talking about Gravity and the whole thing with Gravity. And this movie's more, I guess, I don't know. I think I would equate it more, look at it, compare it more to Gravity than I would Interstellar, just because of it's kind of like
it's more grounded, I think, than Interstellar.
Yeah, like more of in more of a rescue mission than like than exploration, that kind of stuff, or like end of the world kind of thing. But like with Gravity, the visuals are amazing. I'll give them that, and that seeing it in IMAX and all that was great. But at the same time, I felt no connection to those characters. I never felt invested. But in this movie and in the book, I felt very invested. And it's just like,
right,
what's going to happen? Oh shit, I guess we won't go too much into it, spoil it for people. But, a lot of those moments, you're right. Like, you don't know what's going to happen one way or the other. And I think they did a great job kind of keeping you hanging on throughout the movie. So, definitely recommend seeing it. I'm probably going to end up going to see it again. I think my brother wants to go see it. So,
nice.
Yeah, there are a couple movies out I really want to see. Like, I want to see Sicario really bad, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
I want to go see the Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah, that does look good too. Also, what was it? Crimson Peak. Crimson Peak, I wouldn't mind going and seeing.
I'm not sure about. I can wait for that one. There's there's not much. I'm like, I really need to see that.
You want to say polarizing figure? I guess Guillermo del Toro is one that has his nut huggers, and then he has detractors out the wazoo. Yeah, a lot of people, I think he's a little full of himself. But I enjoy pretty much everything that I've seen him make. Even going back to Devil's Backbone and then Hellboy. Actually, I can't say I've ever seen Hellboy 1 all the way through, but Hellboy 2 I thought was fantastic, and so is Pacific Rim, and Pan's Labyrinth is just, to me, is just a beautiful movie.
Absolutely. Which, side note, I don't know if you ever noticed it playing through, and I promise this is a 1 point, and we don't have to come back to it, but Taken King, how similar whenever the echoes of Oryx come up, how similar they look to Pan from Pan's Labyrinth. It looks very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar with the horns and like the markings on the foreheads and stuff like that. Yeah, every time I saw it, that's all I could think of, and just wish that I had it in Spanish.
I wonder if there is a Spanish translation or Spanish version that you could do on Destiny. That'd be fun.
I'm sure.
That'd be fun to hear a lot of the stuff that Nathan Fillion says. Can we just talk just another brief moment, just how fantastic the voice acting is in that game? And I've come around to Nolan North, and I think a lot of it was just, I was just so connected to Dinklebot for so long, and then them having to redo it. But I think that Nathan Fillion's been amazing in that. I would say that's an acting role.
Yeah.
I mean, just because of how big of a role it is. And that's just on a bigger scale, I guess that's not something that I feel like gets talked about too much or enough, is the amount of time and a lot of I guess the skill that goes into making those experiences or getting and casting the right guys to come in. You see a lot of the same guys go in and out of bigger video games, but like, I don't think a lot of people think about how much gets orchestrated or how much has to be orchestrated to get that together, especially in such a successful way. And then I don't know, why aren't those guys, maybe they are during, video game awards and stuff like that. But a lot of times I feel like those, a lot of those are acting jobs. I mean, and I feel like they should probably be recognized more, I guess long story short, that's what I'm getting at. Those guys need more recognition.
Yeah. Well, they're about to go on a big strike as a result of that. So funny enough.
Are they really?
Yeah. Yeah. The screen actor or whatever are supposed to be going on strike because of all that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess timely, yeah, I guess. Yeah, my mind works in a timely way. Yeah.
So another thing that's come out since the last time we recorded, which we've talked about in length leading up to, is the release of Coheed's new album,
The Color Before the Sun.
Yeah.
Came out on Friday.
Yep. They streamed through Pandora for a week leading up to, which was great. I see a lot of bands doing that. Churches did theirs through NPR, I think, for the week leading up to theirs. It's kind of nice. I mean, it's a good way to listen to it that takes money, I guess, out of the whole Spotify, Google Play hands, but allows people to test drive before they buy, I guess, if they're going to buy it physically or digitally or however they're going to get it. So from that standpoint, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and more so than anything, I think they find out, whenever their shit leaks and they're like, all right, screw it, take it and listen to it. But you guys need to get ads like in Pandora's case. And you're right, get the money back in their hands. I mean, so yeah, big release. One of the biggest ones of the year. I know for you and I, or you and me. What do you think, man?
Oh, I'm loving it. Up until I think yesterday, I was saying that I think it overthrew Churches for my album of the year, and then I went back and listened to Churches again, and I really can't decide because I go back and forth depending on what I'm listening to at the time. But very true to what I expected out of sort of the process of listening to a Coheed album, I guess, in that listen to it 30 times and then listen to it the next 30 times and get something completely different out of it. I will say that there's a lot of slower stuff that doesn't, quote unquote sound Coheed. I mean, I guess it does. It's very much Wake Up and what's the other one? Far.
Dark Side of Me. And
yeah, well, not really Dark Side of Me.
Yeah, you're right, because it's not slow. And well, I would say Ghost is kind of close to Dark Side of Me. Yeah.
But Colors and the other one are much more like Wake Up and Far, I think. But from that standpoint, I thought there were more sort of slower paced songs on the album than I was expecting. And at first I wasn't really a huge fan of that, but they've come to grow on me. I think and one of the things that grabbed me the most was obviously the transition and the way the instrumentals are from being typical sort of heavy or progressive sounding Coheed to being much more upbeat, almost pop rock in some instances. But again, going back to this, listening to it multiple times and getting something new out of it. And I had talked to you about the fact that Good Apollo was very much heavy emotional lyrics with heavy emotional instrumentals backing it up. And the neat thing about this album is we've gotten the contrast of very heavy emotional lyrics with that's contrasted by this very upbeat pop sound, which I think shows a lot of growth in their style and how they're producing music right now. So from that standpoint, I appreciate it a lot more in listening to that. I think Islands is one of the, sort of poppiest songs that they've put out, but has some of the most heartbreaking lyrics to go along with it. So from that standpoint, I very, very much enjoyed the album from start to finish. And like I said, those slower songs have grown on me. It's just always this weird thing. And I think Coheed's in this weird place right now where we talked about Churches with a second album, you really don't want them to stray from what was so great about their first album. We wanted to see some sort of refinement, but to see some of the same of what we saw before. Whereas from Coheed, whenever you're 7 albums in, you really can't keep producing the same things and grow as a artist and as a band. And especially with everything that the band members have gone through, there's their whole style with the Amory Wars and their universe and people that have written them off as a result of that. So, Claudio's gone through all these life experiences. Travis has come and gone, and not Travis, the drummer,
Josh Shepard.
Yeah, Josh Shepard. So, this band has gone through this 2 decades long history, and so you see a lot more of that, I think, come through in this album than in albums past. So from that standpoint, like I said, I'm finding more love of it as through the lens of someone that's listening to Coheed for so long and trying to find new ways and new things to expect out of them. So I think this album shows a ton of growth for them as a band. I don't think it's going to be what most people are expecting out of Coheed, though, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. But at the same time, going into it, you have to think they're straying away from that dark, glim, Amory Wars story, or grim. Sorry, is glim even a word? So trying to stray away from concept albums and going into that, I almost expect something completely different, and I think that they deliver on that, because if they stick to that same sound, get rid of the lyrics, I mean, it's still not that much different, right? It just doesn't have that, I guess, that story behind it. It's still the same, you would still go in with the same kind of, I don't know what to say, lesson, theme, that kind of thing into the album. But I think they did a great job, like you were saying. It really is quite dynamic whenever you think about how they're able to take such a lighthearted sound. And like you said, once you start kind of digging into it, especially Island, it's like, all right, how are you so upbeat about being so beaten down? I don't get it. And a lot of it, like an Atlas, to me is probably, that might be the best song for me of the year. And I loved it whenever he just did it in his house or in his studio or whatever, playing it and uploading that video to YouTube. And then I think I was listening to the album. I was talking to you, or I was chatting with you at work, and I'm like, I'm sitting there listening. It's like kind of background noise, and I'm like, wait, because it's my first time listening to it, and I'm sitting there working, so I got to focus on it. And then I start hearing stuff in the background. I'm like, wait, I know this song. Oh shit! Like, this is awesome. Like, I was expecting it. Just going in, I was expecting it to stay an acoustic song, and the fact that it wasn't, and the fact that it hit so well. And I think it's so much better as an electric version. It hit me. It was awesome. And you're right. I think that is part of the theme, though. And maybe that's it, is looking at, the positivity behind some of the negative, I guess, and, being able to coexist with that kind of thing. But, yeah, there are some heartbreaking lyrics on that, and you're right. And they're just masked. And I think that takes a lot of talent too. It almost reminds me of, you don't listen to Bayside, do you?
Mm-mm.
All right. Their first couple albums, it's like they're kind of upbeat, and they kind of got like what sounds to be like kind of a positive tone to them. But some of them, like, you listen to and it's, okay, I understand. He's talking about killing his ex-girlfriend. Okay. but it's funny to be able to kind of juggle those two things, be able to sound positive and really be talking about some negative stuff. It's cool. It's, oil and water mix in that regard, I guess. And it usually makes for a good listening experience. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's probably the second best album for me this year, behind Instant Gratification. But
so yeah, as a result of the album coming out, I mean, you and I talked, we're getting towards the end of the year now. We're 2 months away, a month and a half away from the end of the year. Two and a half months.
2.5 months, yeah.
So as a result, I go back and I'm like, okay, so what all albums have come out this year that start really thinking about this whole album of the year that we've talked about here and there? And there's a lot that really slipped by that I started going back and listening to. And I think one of which that you've had a little bit more time than me, but that I started getting into a little bit Friday was Motion City Soundtrack's latest. What have you thought of that?
It's so different. It really he doesn't sound the same anymore. And it's weird because to me, the hallmark of their sound was his voice.
Yeah.
But what that did, in talking about like what we did last time, is that made me go back and like I realized I missed 3 albums in between.
Yeah.
And going back, and I think the later part of my week was pretty much listening to Commit This to Memory and was it Dinosaur Week or whatever, and whatever the other 2 albums. I don't know the names of them. I just put them on, and they're solid. They're solid albums. But honestly, I haven't listened to what is it, Battle Stations? Is that or Panic Stations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that all that much. I listened to it maybe once or twice whenever I was in California, but I mean, it's still solid. I mean, I'd listen to it, but I don't think it really touches Commit This to Memory. And
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very different. Like I said, I listened to it once through on Friday, and I need to go back. I think I had 12 or 13 albums that just completely slipped by me this year that I want to go back and listen to. So I'm hoping this week. But again, I've loved this Churches and Coheed album so much that every time I try to listen to one thing, I inevitably go back and start listening to those again. So
yeah, that tends to happen. I've been trying to stray away from that, but I keep getting back to the Coheed album. That's where I keep coming. Hold on, my dog's chewing on some plastic, so take it away, Kevin.
So I think that wraps us up for music, more or less. But there's been some other things that have been going on recently, new things that have come out. And I know we've talked a lot about Destiny over the past month or 2 months since we've been trying to make the show regular again. But another game that isn't out yet, but that we actually saw some out of for the first time to actually play something, it was the Star Wars Battlefront Beta, which came out a week ago. So I was able to download that and play that some last weekend in between Destiny matches. I think I've found myself lately trying to figure out now that I've played through a good bit of the end game content in Destiny, aside from some of the quest lines and stuff, just to be perfectionist and collect everything in the game I mean, I'm looking forward to the hard mode raid, but aside from that, I'm struggling to find things to do whenever I'm playing Destiny by myself. It's much different whenever I'm playing and I have you or Troy or Phil or other groups of people on playing in a group, is what to do whenever I'm playing solo, and I'm finding it harder and harder to justify playing by myself in Destiny at times. It's not all the time. So the Star Wars beta was a good reason for me to download. It was at a good time for me to download that and try to figure out what I'm going to fill in that gap whenever I am playing something solo. And I think ultimately, Fallout 4 is probably going to fill that void because it is strictly a solo experience. I think they may be weaving in some of the multiplayer experiences in the new one based off what they showed at E3. I can't speak to that completely, but nonetheless, I got the Star Wars Battlefront beta, so played that. I played probably 2 hours in it. I don't think I dug enough into it to really give it a verdict one way or the other. One thing I will say is that it's very much got some of the best things that I loved from the Battlefield series, in that their environments and their map and damage integration with maps is some of the best I've seen in games. I mean, that beta seemed like I was playing and controlling someone via GoPro. I mean, it was gorgeous. You were on Hoth and you'd be in the trenches and you would turn and there were little flicks and shimmers in the snow. I mean, like there was just little specks of glitter in the snow, just very subtle environmental changes that most games just do not implement. And it was a living, breathing environment. You know, if you threw a grenade, there were just remnants of that grenade on the environment. And from that standpoint, and being meshing that with the Star Wars universe was gorgeous. I mean, like I said, being on these planets and simultaneously looking up in the sky and seeing battle cruisers and stuff up above you, I could not be happier with that aspect of it. One thing that I wasn't a fan of, and to an extent, I think I kind of knew that going into it, and was kind of the deal with Battlefront 2 was that it was, I tread lightly saying this, but it was a quote unquote easy game. I didn't see a lot that would take it. At first glance or at first play, it didn't seem like this is going to be a game that's going to take months to get really good at. The mechanics seem very straightforward. Seems like the bulk of it is just going to be putting in your time to progress, to unlock the things, to really build your subclasses and stuff like that. But I mean, just little things where your blasters do the exact same precision and damage output, whether you're zoomed in or not. I think that kind of makes sense, though, based on play styles. They probably don't want to favor first person versus third person, because I know a lot of people do play predominantly third person for Battlefront games. So, and honestly, I think that's the way to play Battlefront. I appreciate them making the effort to merge their FPS audiences as a EA title. But at the same time, I think third person is the way to go. But I didn't get as much enjoyment to that same point, I didn't get as much of the impact of the environments like I was talking about before from third person perspective as I did in first person. So there is that, but I think I'll check it out. But this one for me currently, I really want to see what happens after full release and what people are saying about it, because it seems like it's going to be a really limited release. I mean, they don't have a ton of content launching in the base game. So we'll see how it shakes out. And again, I know there will be a single player experience with this, but what Battlefront's always been is getting buddies around, and a lot like these Call of Duty games and stuff, it's more a multiplayer focused experience, and nothing better than hearing your friends scream in terror as you're shredding through them with a lightsaber as Darth Vader or your favorite Sith or Jedi. So from that standpoint, like I said, it's a wait and see for me, but it was a lot of fun and beautiful to look at what little bit of time I did get to spend with it. So
nice. So they probably did that on purpose. No learning curve, essentially, just to get more casual people into the game. I mean, we used to play the crap out of Battlefront 2. What, high school? Was that senior or junior high school? Played till like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I'm having a hard time, as I'm told before, like I'm having a hard time tearing myself away from Destiny, like, because I don't have, I don't know. I want to dedicate as much time to catching up to you, I guess, as possible. But what free time I have after work, but I definitely do want to try it out. I don't know that I see myself, like you said, wait and see. I don't know if I see myself buying it at first. And you're saying lack of, I guess, starter content or launch content. It just
seems like very minimal maps and content from what they've released so far. I think it was 5 planets, I think, or something like that.
And that bugs the piss out of me, man, because that's the drain your wallet, pay to play model. Right. Essentially what equates to a subscription model at that point, right? You pretty much have to buy the season pass to get the stuff that what you should get at start. And I don't know.
I mean, like I said, if there's enough content there to warrant that, I'm completely on board. I think games have done that and done that successfully. But more times than not, it's the opposite of that, where they try to suck you in with microtransactions and DLC that in the end isn't really worth it whenever you look at just the base game. And it's better to just wait for the Game of the Year edition that has all of that on there. So, like I said, I'll wait and see what really shakes out. But yeah, as far as the beta went, like I said, I had fun with it, but it's not a game that I really saw as a come back to it, need to play it, gotta have it game for me right now. While I appreciate, being in that environment and what that game really is, I can't appreciate it from that standpoint of I need to have this knowing what other games are coming down the pipeline currently.
Yeah, and can we talk about that for a minute, just to move away from Star Wars? I mean, there are two. There's one that came out last week. It's a freaking $250 purchase that I know you and Amber are talking about investing in. And then you have its rival, which they're making hopefully a more triumphant return into the game or into the gaming realm than, let's say, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater did. But Rock Band came out last week, right? It came out on Tuesday. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
They have different tiers of bundles that you can buy, either just the game and guitar, game and guitar and drums, which ends up, like I said, ends up being a $249 purchase, I believe. And then Guitar Hero comes out on Tuesday. And are you guys still thinking about, or are you guys going to get Rock Band anytime soon?
You know, this has been, honestly, we're at the point now where we're both playing Destiny so much and playing these other games so much that our relationship in a lot of ways, we grew up playing games together, and we're in this very weird space right now where the gaming industry is pushing so much for graphics and physics engines and everything else that they don't allow the ways that we used to play games together, in that we would play on the couch and play split screen, or, you know, we would play 360 and we each had our own 360s because they were at a price point where we could have multiple. So right now we're both playing so much Destiny and soon to be Fallout 4 and some of these other games that rather than investing in a $250 purchase like Rock Band, we're kind of thinking, well, you know, should we get another Xbox so that we can at least play together? I mean, Rock Band, again, we could get Rock Band and conceivably play together, right? That is one of those games that we could play together. But ultimately, I don't see us playing that as much and as long as we have, say, Destiny over the course of the past year. That is going to keep continuing in the future. So that's where we're at right now is, you know, I think if Black Friday deals come out and maybe Rock Band drops, I don't think it's going to happen, but if it drops $100, $50, $75, whatever they drop, I think there's going to be some sort of a deal on Black Friday. I think you can pretty much bet on that it's pretty much par for the course for them. It'll be a big, big holiday ticket item. I think that's why it's come out now, so that they can get a lot of sales moved before they get into that season where they launch some sort of a deal. Or an Xbox One bundle. I think you can see something like that too. So, so we'll see. But right now, to answer the question, no, I think Rock Band is definitely one of those games. Speaking of games that Amber and I play together and have played together a ton of, that's definitely one of those titles. But for dollars and cents right now, I don't think that that's necessarily on our radar as much as, you know, just a new Xbox or just some of these titles that we can get for $60 or whatever standalone.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm struggling with, you know, living alone. I mean, I think one of the best things to me, one of the reasons I was addicted to Guitar Hero was that whole camaraderie aspect that was, or competitive aspect, or, you know, right, cooperative that we had in college, where you're right, where we'd sit around and play on the same Xbox or in the same PlayStation, what have you. And it was all about that experience of sitting together and playing together. And, you know, I don't know, I'll play the crap out of Guitar Hero, but for how long? You know, right, how long am I gonna sit?
They're very much dorm room.
And then party games. I mean,
party
it
games,
is, yeah,
exactly.
And one of the other, you know, legitimate concerns that I have about it is how poorly Guitar Hero translated to HD televisions whenever it was out, and same with Rock Band. And one of the things that I shouldn't have to do at this point, and hopefully that is completely gone by the wayside, is have to calibrate the audio lag, yep, and the video or visual lag. Because you're spending millions upon millions of dollars in research and development of this game. Why am I having to do that kind of thing whenever I get it, just because my TV's better than it should, you know, better than, at this point, everybody's pretty much on an HD TV.
Right.
And anybody who's playing on Xbox One or on PlayStation 4 most likely is running an LED TV or some sort of, you know, higher end television. And, you know, if it doesn't end up,
Well,
translating well.
I think now it has to. I think that was the issue that they ran into with the 360 and PS3 was that it was in this middle ground of people coming from traditional. What was the input? Was it RCA? No.
Yeah.
RCA input to HDMI input, whereas now all consoles are strictly on HDMI input. So they know that those TVs are all going to be on the same playing field. So hopefully, I think that's a valid point, though. I didn't even think about that. And you're absolutely right that you shouldn't have to go through that exercise.
No, and I'd be absolutely livid if I go and I spend $100 because at this point, there's no backward compatibility because there's a brand new guitar, right? So I think somebody's mentioning that you could buy the old one that has the neck or whatever, and you could just pop the new neck into it. But sorry, my dog's going crazy. They're fighting. My cat and my dog are fighting underneath my chair. It's awesome. Yeah, if I were to go out and spend $100 on that bundle and then get home and for it to shit the bed essentially on me, I would be absolutely livid because at that point, I don't think you can return the game for the full value. You'd go and return it for a refund.
Right.
Or you can go and get the same game if it was broken, but at that point, I don't think you can go and turn it in as like a gift. But so one of the things I want to do over the next couple of weeks, I guess, is to go up to. I'm sure GameStop is going to have both of those games on display and demo. I can't remember the last time I stepped foot in a GameStop though, so. And go check out that new controller just to see how it is and see if see if that fire still burns inside me to be a Guitar Hero.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think that's a game that if you have a group of people that regularly get together, like if you have, which this is another point I think you and I need to talk off the air about is, if you have a group that gets together regularly for football games or poker night or grilling and cooking out in the backyard or whatever. If you have a group of people that are getting together regularly, I think that's plenty reason enough to get Rock Band. But for me personally, knowing that the majority of the time that I'm playing games, the type of games that I'm playing are FPS. Let's just cut to the chase. It's Destiny right now, right? So, yes. I mean, the bulk of that is being played on one Xbox where I would much rather be able to play with Amber because Amber and I have never played Destiny together, which is so crazy considering that it's like I said, it's the first game that either one of us have played in this capacity for, I think we've both logged well over 500, 600, 700 hours, whatever it is. And we've yet to be able to play that game together. So from that standpoint, I think if you have a party environment, Rock Band is more than a worthy investment for something like that. But just for where we're at right now, and I'm really hoping that Black Friday we see some sort of deals for both Rock Band and for Xboxes. If Xbox dropped and we saw a price point, which I think we're in a prime season to see something like that, considering that they've rolled out so many new bundles, so many new versions of it, and they've expanded their hard drive capacity and stuff like that. I think this holiday season we'll see some sort of a deal, but right now I think that's where I'm at least is if we're going to make some sort of a gaming purchase, it would be on another Xbox, and then if we could find a reason to get Rock Band, great. But again, it's not a two-person experience that we're going to be playing nearly as much as we would be something like a Destiny with the other 10 or 15 people that we have that we play with regularly,
Yeah, that's true. So you mentioned Fallout. That's not a game that's on my radar necessarily. I haven't pre-ordered it or anything like that. I haven't looked too much into it, to be honest. I did play a good bit of Fallout 3. I never finished the game. So I ended up getting in that mode. I think that we talked about it before with sandbox games where you start getting so deviated across the storyline and going and doing side quests that you forget that you were doing in the first place. And then you come back to it 2 weeks later and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I'm done. So that happened with me. So Fallout, that comes out in a couple weeks, right?
November, I believe. I'm not sure what the exact date is.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was an October release, but
I feel like it's the first or second week in November. I'm not sure. I'll have to pull up the date.
And then, so we have that. We have Tomb Raider also, which I'm stoked to
November
get my hands
10th.
on. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's probably, to me, I think that's probably my next game that I'm going to be playing other than Destiny is I'm going to be deviating and playing Rise of the Tomb Raider whenever that comes out. And I I don't know. I think I might go back and play through some of the definitive edition. Did you pick that up whenever it was free?
I did. So I think we made some sort of a setting on our Xboxes. It's happened multiple times, unless Amber is sneaking and downloading it without me noticing. But I think I have some sort of a setting that automatically downloads games with gold, because I'll be playing a game and all of a sudden I'll see whatever pop and say that such and such is ready to play. So definitive edition is ready to play, even though I didn't personally download it. So yeah, I need to look into if that's a setting. If so, I would definitely recommend putting that on your Xbox so that you don't miss out on any of those games with gold if there is something that you want to go back and play in the future.
I'm trying to think what's on there right now. Valiant Hearts was on there the first half of the month.
Yeah,
I don't know what came on the 15th though. I'm not positive about that
either. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of Destiny. Two breaks, I should say, from Xbox for TV matters are last week we had the premiere of The Walking Dead. Did you manage to catch that?
I didn't, but in that, The Walking Dead is the other games with gold right now.
Season 2?
That I'm not sure of.
It's gotta be. Could be.
It's the first season.
What? That's so old.
Yeah, well, most of those games that are come on games with gold usually are pretty old. So, actually, it's hard to tell. It doesn't say. It just has a link. It just has a link to The Walking Dead as the
it's a Telltale one, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Nope, it's the complete first season right now. Is all that's on there. So,
which I definitely recommend that. I loved that, and I thought it was really well done. We talked about that on the podcast as well. I thought that was a great if you just need a pick up and play game at an hour or two interval. I really enjoyed that. It was very little gameplay. It was much more of a story driven. Interaction-based game, but I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm much more interested in season 2. If that had ever popped, I would have. Now I wish that would. But yeah, so season premiere of The Walking Dead last week, season 6.
Yeah, season 6. I have yet to catch the first episode. So
yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I thought the premiere had some of the biggest special effects that they've pumped into an episode to date that rivaled the season premiere last year in a lot of ways, which was hard to top. So definitely on board with the season so far. I think they're starting to do some interesting things, not to get too heady, but with cinematography and the way that they're pacing the show. And in some ways they're very much like what they were last season, where at least in these first 2 episodes, we're seeing them focus on 2 parts of the group, essentially, and then somehow they're going to meet in the middle, I think. So we're seeing both perspectives, and then they'll merge eventually. So, but yeah, definitely enjoyed the first episode. Second one is 20 minutes away. But other than that, I also caught up 2 episodes in now, despite my better judgment, which was American Horror Story Hotel. I have not been a fan of the past 2 seasons of American Horror Story and I stopped watching them halfway through. I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons, but everything I saw about American Horror Story Hotel, I was kind of on board with, and I figured I'd give it a shake. Aside from one of the storylines being about a decade late revolving around vampires, I am very much enjoying this season so far. We don't have any of the Glee moments that came out of the last 2 seasons where there was some sort of song and dance involved in just about every episode, I felt like. So Matt Bomer is a main character in this season, so that was nice to see. Lady Gaga, who I wasn't sure what to expect, but she's been good so far. So yeah, I'm enjoying this season much, much more than the last 2. And I think because it's got some sort of a direction, which the other 2 didn't have, and they're focusing more on the 10 Commandments, which is kind of interesting. It's a little different than the 7 Deadly Sins, which I think is getting a little played out at this point. So, and it also follows it very much follows the guy that had the hotel that was on that Sword and Scale podcast that I was talking to you about. H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
It sort of follows that line of thought of his torture hotel, and they sort of give some backstory in one of the episodes that is almost verbatim Sword and Scale podcast. So,
Murder Castle.
Yeah, just like how the hotel came to be and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely enjoying this season. Like I said, we're only 2 episodes in, so who knows? But, so yeah, that's been what I've spent my time watching outside of playing any games or whatever. What about you?
You'll probably laugh at me. I think you have laughed at me for it, but I think the show that I've watched the most over the past couple weeks, I've been catching up on The Goldbergs, which was a show that I absolutely did not want to like. Because I was like, I saw the trailer for it, 2-3 years ago at this point. I'm like, oh, great.
Very much Mike and Molly.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, great. I get it. It's 80s, bunch of cliches, whatever. And then I never realized that it was so the guy who makes it, Adam F. Goldberg, who's a movie producer. He's also written. I didn't really like the movie that he wrote and directed. Fanboys. Did you ever watch that with Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel and about them going to the Star Wars convention? That wasn't great, but it's him recalling his childhood, and I was like, okay, a lot of times, you think a lot of this stuff's far fetched, but what's cool about it, aside from they casted it really well. I'm a big fan of Jeff Garlin. He laughs or screams a lot, but he's still pretty funny. And then Barry, the brother, is absolutely hilarious throughout the show. One of the things that he does for every episode, though, is, you go through the 20 minutes or whatever, and then right at the end, he plays actual home video footage that calls back some of the stuff. So, the whole story pretty much is about him. Even as a kid, he used the home video camera whenever they got it a whole lot, and wanted to become a director or whatever, that early in his life. And it's about, I want to say he's like 10 years old at the start of the first season. And right now he's going through puberty in the 3rd season. It's so weird. It's kind of throwing me off. It's a lot like, I guess, whenever Luke was going through the same thing on Modern Family, but, no, it's great. So some of the stuff, obviously, and he's come out and said, a lot of the stuff that he gets, historical inaccuracies happen with the whole 80s thing. But sometimes, he just, for the sake of the story, just for the sake of a good story, he, fabricates some of that stuff, obviously. But, it's funny seeing those home videos at the end, because a lot of them are, there's one embarrassing recent episode where he was talking about how he used to sit on the phone and he would sing so horribly over the phone to his girlfriend, who moved over to Seattle. This takes place in Philadelphia. And it's just so hard to watch, even just like the regular show. It's like, God, this is embarrassing. And then he plays the home video footage of him singing Toy Soldiers to his girlfriend in such a high-pitched voice. I guess his brother was recording him doing it. It's just like, oh, my skin's crawling. Like, this is so hard to watch. It's so funny because he's just making fun of himself so much. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked that out, it's single camera sitcom, no laugh track, anything like that. Which seems to be the way that most sitcoms are going anyway. But yeah, it's funny though. I didn't want to like that or Fresh Off the Boat. The first season of Fresh Off the Boat was pretty funny.
I should check that out too.
Yeah. So I guess that maybe wraps it up. I think we're
we normally talk a little bit about it, but we don't have to.
Football
6-0.
Oh, 6-0. Actually, yeah, that's one of the things. As soon as I get off of here, I'm going to go fire up NBC and watch the Colts, who are beating the Patriots right now 7-0. So
good. Hopefully, T.Y. Hilton will get me some points.
Dante Moncrief has a touchdown for me. So, yeah. So Deshaun Watson, they were talking about on college football talk in Atlanta on 92.9. They were like, he's from Atlanta, right? Deshaun Watson.
I think he's from Gainesville.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Northeast Atlanta. Yeah, they were just like, how much Georgia fans call in and tell us how much you would love to have Deshaun Watson as your quarterback right now. Because
this is the part in the season that I get really scared as a Clemson fan. I've seen this before. We've been in this 5-0, 6-0 position before, and inevitably it crumbles. And I very much think that 1 to 2 more wins, and I may not be able to watch anymore because I'm just going to have the worst like anxiety about every game.
You're about to say diarrhea.
Yeah, diarrhea. I'm going to have the worst diarrhea with every game. So yeah, I mean, it was great. We got to go to the game yesterday against what was the number 1 defense in the country in Boston College. So it was nice to put up 34 points on them and take a 24-point win. So that was nice. So yeah, we'll see. It's, fingers crossed, knock on wood, cross my heart, hope to die. Seems like the real deal out of Clemson this year. Love to see them go to the Final Four with teams that are very much looking shaky. TCU, Ohio State, not looking so great in those top 2 and 3 positions. And there was another one that was in the top 5 that has just barely squeaked out a few of these wins. Baylor, not looking all it's cracked up to be every week.
I don't know, dude. Baylor's putting up 60 points a week, so Baylor's,
but against who? That's my thing.
Baylor's the real deal.
We'll see. I
think Baylor's the real deal. Nothing as heartbreaking as what happened to my boy Jim Harbaugh. It's funny.
I know that was so hard to see.
I've always hated Michigan. Growing up, my dad's from Indiana. I was kind of raised to hate Michigan, Ohio State, all those teams. But Jim Harbaugh was kind of my hero in the mid-'90s because he was a Colts quarterback, almost took us to a Super Bowl against the Steelers in the AFC Championship. Still kind of bullshit that Hail Mary. It was totally caught. So I love Jim Harbaugh. Never been, one of his haters that, he has a lot of them out there. But, it's funny. Me and my brother were talking about how much we hated Michigan. And now, we root for him because of Harbaugh. And I was seeing, I got home from Birmingham yesterday, and I was looking at Twitter, and I saw the feed. It was I can't believe what I just saw. What the hell just happened? Oh my God. And then I see the video of what happened. I'm like, holy shit. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Why didn't he just fall on the ball, get tackled or something?
Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm thinking LSU and Clemson. I'll give you Baylor. But I think LSU and Clemson far more deserve, and obviously I have my bias with Clemson, but LSU especially over that Ohio State and TCU team. What I've seen out of both of them so far this season, I could easily see LSU and Clemson being far more deserving of making those playoff spots if things were to be decided currently. I think we're only 1 or 2 weeks away from seeing the polls, the actual committee rankings. So it should be interesting to see how that shakes out. I think Clemson will get a big boost if they manage to get the win against Florida State. Obviously, if they go undefeated, there's no denying that. But Florida State, who seems to be having a great season so far, is the last big team, I think, on Clemson's schedule. Miami isn't really doing much, and neither is anybody else on there. I mean, South Carolina is a ghost at this point. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But I'm definitely starting to get a little nervous. 2 more wins, they'll put us at 8-0 going into that Florida State game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But LSU, man.
Yep, Leonard Fournette gets what. Wow. Yeah. Leonard Fournette gets what Leonard Fournette wants. That's what it comes
to. Absolutely. I mean, but to their credit, I mean, Florida coming out of nowhere this year, which no one saw coming in, that put up a great season so far. So I'm definitely interested to see how their season shakes out as well, which kind of had LSU on their heels a little bit in that game. And I mean, LSU only pulled out by only won by a touchdown, but Florida got a great team, it's looking like. So, but LSU, I think the worst of LSU's schedule is still on the back end. I mean, they've got Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and A&M all in their last 4 games. So that's going to be if they manage to win out on – if they're a 1 loss with their schedule, the way that they're playing right now, I don't think they'll have any trouble. I think they've got the biggest or the most top 25 matchups. They got lucky and scheduled Auburn whenever they had Auburn whenever Auburn was still ranked, so that gives them a little bit of a boost. But yeah, like I said, after winning over a number 8 Florida team, they've still got a number 8 now Alabama team and 2 other top 25 at the back end. Should be interesting to see what happens. But I don't see Ohio State or TCU hanging on all the way through. Ohio State maybe because again, they have nobody on their schedule.
Do they play Michigan State?
Yes, they do. They play Michigan State and Michigan their last 2 games, but those are their only 2 top 25 matchups for the entire
season. They're going to lose both of those games.
Yeah. So yeah, I could definitely see them losing. And like I said, TCU has looked shaky at times. Utah, we'll see. I mean, they're 6-0 and they beat California last week, which was also undefeated. So that was good.
They beat Michigan pretty handily in the first game of the season.
Yeah. So TCU's still got OK State, Oklahoma, and they've got Baylor to end out their season. So that'll be great. That'll be I think if Baylor wins out, obviously they deserve it. And like I said, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on Baylor. I haven't seen Baylor put up anything yet that has come. I completely get what you're saying, that they're putting up crazy numbers. I completely agree. I mean, they're beating – that's the thing, though. I mean, they're beating convincing – they're definitely beating people that they're beating convincingly, but it's the who they're beating that is what leaves me to – have more. I mean, SMU, Rice, I guess Texas Tech, but again, I mean, yeah, like I said, they're winning handily, but theirs is definitely on the back end. They've got Oklahoma State, TCU all on the back end. So I think we'll see a lot more out of both of those teams. Ohio State, I don't see putting up much until the end either. So still a lot of football. I think we just hit the midway point of the season. So this is when things start to get really interesting. And like I said, those coaches polls, I think we're a week or 2 out from those. So,
yep. Baylor's lowest score output this year, 56 points against SMU.
Yeah. I mean, it takes, no matter who you're beating, it takes a certain caliber team to put up those numbers. I mean, no team is ever going to lay down and just let you put up those numbers on them. So from that point, like I said, I completely agree, but I want to see them put up those numbers against a team that is actually ranked or nationally relevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, understood.
So
absolutely.
And I think the same thing can be said for Clemson in that fact. I think LSU that's why I would put LSU, and I have no issue with LSU jumping Clemson at this point because of that exact reason. But I think if Clemson can win out and definitely taking down Florida State in 3 weeks, I think that'll definitely help them out big time. And they're going to need that because they're going to get the exact same comments that everyone else is getting because the ACC, I mean, Georgia Tech losing 5 straight now or whatever it is. Luckily, they got that Notre Dame win, but and BC, even with them having the defense that they have, the rest of their offense and their ranking is nothing. So should be a fun month and a half or 2 that we've got leading into the end of the season. So
yeah, most definitely. It's going to shape up to be kind of a wild race.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think that wraps us up for tonight. And like I said, hopefully we'll get another episode out this week, but if not, definitely next week we'll be back, and glad to be back. Thanks for checking us out. Please, if you're first-time listener or even a long-time listener that may not have done it, go over to our iTunes page and put up a rating or a comment. We've been a little stagnant on that. I think we're right around 18 or 20 comments or ratings or something. So every little bit of helps. So be sure to do that. Show us some love. Retweet us. We always tweet out the episodes up on Podomatic, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, which we're streaming through. So anywhere you can find us, be sure to show us some love or tell a friend about us. We greatly appreciate it. So thanks for checking us out. You can find both of us on Twitter. Tim, where can they find you at?
You can find me at my name at TIMHERB, Tim Herb.
And you can find me as well at The Architect. That's at _ARC, the number 1. TECT, and you can find us collectively at the Banter Podcast. Is it at Banter Podcast or at the Banter Podcast? At Banter Podcast, right?
Banter Podcast,
yeah, that's right. Find us at Banter Podcast as well. And like I said, thanks for checking us out, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time on the Banter Podcast.